Karena, Virginia has been a certified yoga instructor in the Kundalini and Hatha schools for nearly 20 years. Karena released the Kundalini yoga video Abundance and Miracles in 2013. She has a book, Essential Kundalini Yoga, coming out very, 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 very soon.
Very soon, yes.
Very soon. So tell me just a little bit about your background.
Okay. Both of my parents are European. They both met in New York City in their 20s. Dad from Italy, mom from England. Dad was very wild and vivacious and bigger than life. And mom, my father passed away, but my mom is still very proper and, you know, very delicate, very quiet. So I was raised in this home with the loud Italian cook, eat, have fun, enjoy life father, and then the very proper sit down, say your prayers, hold your fork and knife properly mom. So I have both of those aspects to myself, and sometimes I feel like I can't even figure myself out because it's just like, wait, one day I'm bigger than life and the next day I'm just hiding. So I've had quite a few careers in my life. I went to college for acting, and my first degree is a Bachelor's of Fine Arts in acting. And then when I got out of college, I started working on television and not doing so much stage acting, which I thought I would do, but performing more in commercials and soap operas, which isn't really performing.
Oh.
It's more television, like this sort of.
Well, I was going to make a joke like, so you're saying the soap operas was kind of like your real life and you didn't have to act it at all?
Right. In some ways, yes. Yes, exactly. Only the commercials weren't. Because sometimes I was selling stuff that I'm thinking, this does not work at all, and they knew it didn't work too, and then it was a matter of, okay, let's just put some dark eyeshadow underneath her eyes first, and then we'll put then we'll clean that up, and then we'll use the makeup, to make it, flip it. Or let's make the shirt white first, and then we'll make it red, and then we'll flip it on the camera so it looks like the wine stain that she spilled out came right out and the shirt was perfectly white, But anyway, just to add to the humor of my careers and why I left too, so much of that is a game, right?
Yeah.
And one thing that I should mention is that as a child, I was always extremely spiritual. And when I was a little girl, I used to see angels, and I just knew there was this place beyond the earth realm where the angels would sing. And so I would explore that on my own. I'd go for walks. I would say, look at the beautiful light. And I used to go to Sunday school, and they would teach me about the Bible. And I would say, I don't want to know about the Bible. I want to talk about those beautiful beings. And my Sunday school teacher would say, open to page 17 in your Bible. And I'd say, I don't want to know about the words. I want to know about, and she couldn't answer me. And it's funny because even recently, my mom still goes to that church. This Sunday school teacher, she's an older woman now, she said, I didn't know what to do with you when you were a child, and a lot of teachers didn't. So I did find a much more mainstream way of life when I got involved in acting, and then I was modeling as well. And I felt like it was helping me to fit into this earth realm more. But then I was feeling incredible sadness because I wasn't living to my fullest potential, and I wasn't sharing what I knew to be true, which is that there is a land of miracles within reach for all of us at all times. And that's what led me to my spiritual teaching, and what led me to my video, and what led me to Kundalini Yoga, and what led me to creating a book of hope and tools for how to bring that hope into all of our lives.
So this book, it's about Kundalini Yoga, correct?
Yes.
And I want to sort of ask you about the difference between Hatha Yoga and Kundalini Yoga.
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Because I know that you've done both.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yes. Yeah, so I started practicing yoga when I was a teenager. And at that time, again, that was not the norm. It was, I found a book in my mom's room, and people that were friends of mine were saying, what is that? It's like a naked man in lotus pose. But I was really mesmerized by the whole idea of meditating because I wanted to go to that place that I knew existed in heaven. And so I learned how to how to utilize yoga as a means of quieting the mind to bring us to that place of meditative awareness. And then when I was in college, I studied Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga, there's many forms of Hatha Yoga. A lot of the names that we hear about, Jiva Mukti, Anusara, Ashtanga, they're all forms of Hatha Yoga. And so the Hatha Yoga is a pretty big umbrella. When I lived in New York City, I found Kundalini Yoga in a very small gym in the basement. There were 2 students. Then there were actually 3 of us after a few months. But it was a very small place, and I thought I created this, or I thought I found this incredible miracle. And I just became fascinated by it. And that's when I started practicing Kundalini Yoga. And how is it different? And why was it this little gym that attracted me so much? Because it's a very accelerated form of practice that brings us directly to that state of awareness fast. And you're going to ask how and why?
No, I don't know. I'm going to ask a lot of questions.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'll let you go. Go ahead.
Well, I think of it as a vehicle to take us out of our minds and deep into our hearts, into our souls, into our energy body, which Hatha Yoga does do as well. But Hatha Yoga is more of a meditative practice, and it takes time, and we may find where there's trauma in our body, where there's blocked energy, and we may go into a pigeon pose for a while and release that energy, or we may have more of a physical asana practice where we're moving more vigorously. But there isn't as much of an emphasis on connecting every single breath with every single movement and having a synergistic quality based on science that takes place in the body, the mind, and the spirit, to the point where in Kundalini Yoga it can look really bizarre at times. There'll be very rapid movements with rapid breath, then there'll be slow movements with a slower breath. Then you may go into some very strange pose where I used to joke that to my husband, if he ever saw me practicing Kundalini Yoga before we got married, because now he sees it all the time, that he would think that he was marrying a crazy woman. Because you look a little nuts. And even when I'm teaching now, I say to students, imagine someone walked in and saw what we were doing right now, and here we're all chanting, and we're celebrating.
So so I always think of kind of Hatha Yoga as more predominantly like the poses.
Yes.
Right? In Kundalini, not so much, or it's more of a blend of stuff, or you
It's
do some of the poses?
You do, but you do different poses, and we have kriyas, which are synergistic, sequential poses done in a specific order that were created thousands of years ago in India, and then they were brought over in 1969 by a man. His name was Yogi Bhajan, and he brought them over, and he was an artist in his own way, and he channeled a lot, and he created sort of, I want to say that he was an orchestrator of these movements and putting them into a very scientific form of art so that you would have a specific kriya for a specific result. So if you want to boost your immune system, you'll do a kriya for boosting your immune system. If you want to enhance your energy body, you'll do a kriya to enhance your energy body. If you want to move past old childhood wounds, you'll have a kriya for that. And it's done in a very specific way, and each exercise is timed for a specific amount of time. And you're not basically doing things like downward facing dog, warrior pose. You might have a downward facing dog, which is called triangle pose in Kundalini Yoga, but you're doing more poses like breathing, moving, it's like a washing machine pose with a deep breath, or you're doing ego eradicator with a breath of fire, which is a real rapid inhale, rapid exhale. Your diaphragm's moving, the breath's coming in and out through your nose. Lots of active, meditative movements.
So I imagine, I don't know, I'm going to ask, it's kind of a question, but I imagine that if you start out in Hatha, and Hatha's kind of, like you said, meditative and whatever, that like when you were doing got introduced to the Kundalini, you're like, this is like wacky. You know?
Yeah. Oh, I was. And I thought, okay.
Was it fun though? Were you like, this is wacky fun? Or?
It was not wacky fun. It was wacky, wow, I found it.
Oh, wow.
And it was,
nice.
for me, it was wacky. Oh boy, now I'm really going to be alone, because I mean, it's just starting to become something that's, talked about now. But when I was doing it years ago, it was, this is kind of strange.
Yeah, and I don't really know that much about Kundalini. I mean, and I'm kind of in the, I'm around. So,
you don't hear about it as much.
No. And it's only been very, very recently that I kind of have been stumbling upon it a lot, Because
there's been some celebrities that have practiced it. So yeah, we were at a function in New Mexico, and Demi Moore was there. So it was like, Demi Moore is practicing Kundalini yoga, which is nice, because then when you talk to people, and
isn't that Demi Moore? Isn't that what she
Isn't Demi Moore? Yeah, so it's not that weird. Yeah, Demi Moore practices.
Demi Moore is doing it.
Isn't it crazy how life works like that, though? It does. You have that one person
learning
endorses
those practices in the basement of a gym.
Basement of a gym on the Upper East Side.
Wow.
And there literally were two of us and a teacher. And I would love to find this teacher. If this teacher sees me, that worked at it was New York Sports Club, and I want to say this was in like the 1990s, like late 1990s. Please find me, because I want to say thank you.
Yeah.
And we didn't even have real mats. We had these like foam things, and they were so small, and they'd move around the room. But then for a while, there were two of us and the teacher, and then a third person came. And he was a man, and he was so nice. But so there were two women, a man, and then this teacher, and we used to create some serious energy in that room.
Yeah.
And then I was engaged to my husband at the time, and he'd be going to play golf. And my husband and I got married in 2000. So this was right before I met him. This was late 1990s. And he would go play golf, and then we'd meet, and he'd say, "How was yoga?" And I'd say, "Yoga was great," and I didn't really tell him at that point what I was doing, because I was chanting and doing these breathing exercises and going into these deep meditation practices where I was in New York, but I was in heaven.
I don't think they have that at the sports clubs anymore. I think that's not.
Well, I don't know. Maybe in that basement there's still something going on.
Yeah, that's true. I had started doing yoga years ago. To support my meditation practice, but I was doing hatha, and I'm sure this wasn't my first introduction, but the first place I seriously sort of practiced was integral yoga, and they do the chanting, and they're a little spiritual, and they have like a big component of it, and I think that when I first started, I was kind of like, this is kind of weird and wacky, and I didn't go along with the chants. I didn't, they don't pressure you to do it, so, you can stay silent, but now I love it.
Yeah.
Now I love that kind of, I don't know, there's really something wonderful about that chanting and bringing the energy on. And
I love chanting. There's a lot that takes place in chanting. It's sound, which is extremely powerful. We have doctors now that are using sound as part of their healing modalities. Sound is incredibly healing. But it's not just that the body is creating sound. It's also that the tongue is hitting meridian points in the upper palate.
There's I didn't know there was. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, 84 meridian points on the top of the mouth. Then you have meridian points on the tongue. And so when you're saying specific sounds, they were created years ago, not only as holy words, but also as specific sounds that could create a certain pattern in the neurotransmitters.
That's really interesting, because a lot of times when you learn a prayer or a mantra or a chanting or anything, like from my background, you can say it silently. But this says something different. It says it, like it's not about the repetition of it. It's about, those meridians. Interesting. I had never heard that before.
And these meridian points are sending messages to the hypothalamus of the brain, which in turn are sending messages to the entire glandular system. And the glandular system is actually sending a message out to our energy field. So through the power of chanting, you're creating a sound, but you're also creating an incredible healing physiologically in the physical body.
Wow. Kind of making me think I should go again. I periodically, I kind of do like, I'll do this for a little while, kind of like move around a little bit. But let me ask you about your book a little bit. So what is the content of the book?
It's called Essential Kundalini Yoga. And we brought the most valuable meditations and yoga practices that we felt were the most valuable, I should say, to the book in a way that would embrace everyone. So basically, the book is written for anyone who can walk, a child, all the way up to someone who is bedridden, because there's ways to utilize the breath. There's ways to utilize mindset, to utilize meditation in silence, as well as chants, as well as physical exercises. So what we did was we customized a book that could benefit everybody. And the idea is to bring this very profound form of yoga to the masses, to the mainstream audience. I mean, you don't need to be practicing in the basement of a gym, hoping that your husband's not, seeing you. You can do this anywhere. My
at
daughter,
home, hoping your husband doesn't.
Well, believe it or not, my husband now practices Kundalini yoga. His mother, who's Catholic and very into her going to church every Sunday, she's probably my most loyal student. She comes to all my classes that she can come to. And my daughter just turned 15, and when she was 14, she started her Kundalini yoga teacher training. And my husband's completely supportive of her doing that, which is, and she's with adults. I mean, she's probably the first teenager to ever do this. That's the
power. And she
power.
must have been practicing for a while. I mean, they're not going to let her just do it from the get-go. Yeah.
She's been practicing since she was right here, both my kids. But she's really the one who's my son's kind of going into that place of, I don't know if I believe in this. I think I believe more in science. So he's finding his own way.
That's me in my everyday world. Like, it sounds interesting, but I'm not sure.
It's you being real. And that's what I love about you.
So back to the book. So are there exercises in it? How is it laid out? How is it
so there are kriyas, which are those specific exercises that are done in a specific way, which Yogi Bhajan brought to us, right? Then there's also small exercises that are just one posture that you can do for a few minutes. Then there's also, there's a whole chapter on fertility, exercise to enhance fertility. There's something called miracle breath, which is something that we developed based on Yogi Bhajan's teachings, but also based on Hatha yoga. And it's a way to bring ourselves into a more positive mindset just through one breath that can be done in 1 minute. And seriously, some amazing shifts happen with that breath. Then there's also a tea that Yogi Bhajan taught everybody how to make, which helps to eliminate excess weight.
A drinking tea.
A recipe for that.
Oh, interesting.
There's a few different recipes for detoxing in the bath. There's talk about taking a cold shower, which we believe very strongly in Kundalini yoga.
Oh, wait.
You might say that until you start to practice it. Right now, at this point in my life, my cold shower is like...
Really?
Yes, I love my cold showers. Yes. And that's a long story in itself. That could be a whole show on hydrotherapy and the cold shower. But we also have a chapter on shame and how shame is the lowest vibration and how we need to stop creating more shame in our energy fields. We need to recognize what it is that we're feeling ashamed of and then clear it. And then there's ways to clear it through exercises, through Kundalini yoga exercises.
And how would you sort of define shame? I mean, what's the idea behind that?
The idea behind shame is that as children, usually, we learn where we're flawed. And it could be something that our parents said to us. It could be something that a teacher said to us. It could be something that our best friend's mother said to us. But we believe it to be true, and then we imprint it into our body, and it becomes a samskara, which in yoga is something that is almost like a traumatic thought imprint that stays with us. So then shame creates a frequency, a vibration, a very low vibration. And as adults, we bring this vibration into situations where, for example, right now I could be talking to you and you could be interviewing me and I could be remembering something that happened when I was a little girl.
When you
and
got up and did that speech and you couldn't remember your
yes,
lines.
exactly. And how shameful I felt, because then I made the whole, auditorium, feel like the whole show was ruined or whatever. So I felt shame, and I felt shame for a week. I might not remember that's why I'm feeling nervous right now, which
You
I'm
just
not.
feel nervous, but yeah.
Yes, but
you don't
then
remember the why.
you don't need to know why. And so
Right.
in Kundalini Yoga, our theory is that you don't always need to know why. It's known vibrations that we want to clear and unknown vibrations that we want to clear. But we set the intention to clear them, and then we do the work, and we do clear them. And that's the real miracle of how this works. So it's really a beautiful practice, and I hope that answered your question on shame.
Oh,
But-
I'd come back if you did.
Okay.
I can bring it back. So the Kundalini yoga, so you practice it sort of to how do I want to say it? Like change yourself, sort of. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not saying that right, but like kind of to
Shift?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
To
shift.
enhance
To
redirect.
morph, to change. Yeah.
and shift.
Yeah.
I would say enhance, redirect, and shift.
And that's
Yeah.
really different than Hatha, though, right? I mean, Hatha.
Yes, because Hatha is more about being in the present moment, and Hatha is also based more on the teachings of Buddha, right? Buddhism, and
Oh, is it? Mm-hmm. I didn't know that.
and while and Hatha is more in Sanskrit.
Yeah.
Kundalini Yoga is based on a language called Gurmukhi. It's called Gurmukhi, and it's a different language than Sanskrit. There are a few words that are the same, but otherwise, the chants, the mantras are different language. You're not going to have, like Om Namah Shivaya in Kundalini Yoga. You'll have Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Very different mantras. And Kundalini Yoga, even though it's not a religion, it does stem from the Sikh religion, which is very different than Hatha Yoga.
Wow. So how far are you into this Kundalini practice? I mean,
It's a huge part of my life.
I mean, it sounds like it. I mean, you know tons and tons.
Yeah, I've been studying it for years, and it's a daily practice. It's a big part of my life. Needless to say, I don't walk around the way that many people who are Kundalini Yoga practitioners might walk around. Most people don't know that this is such a big part of my life, because I don't wear a turban, and a lot of Kundalini yogis do wear turbans, a lot of the women as well. And you can see by my street clothes that I live a very modern life. My husband works in New York City. He wears a suit and tie to work, and I go to a lot of...
And he does Kundalini on the sly.
He does
Nobody
Kundalini
knows.
Yoga. Oh, yeah. He's like, hey, he'll even say to his friends, hey, you got to watch this one. This one's for prosperity. Hud, 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 which is really a great meditation for prosperity. It works. So he's all about, let me do the meditation. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, he's definitely much deeper than that. But he does like that one, because he has seen how incredibly powerful it is. But he does he loves the idea of meditating to bring himself into that place of stillness and peace. And not to say that he wouldn't have that through Hatha, because Hatha might even be a better way for him to get there. I do also teach Hatha, and he loves coming to the Hatha classes. But Kundalini Yoga is something that he's around so much more than he is Hatha Yoga. I think sometimes he would rather, sometimes he'll say, oh, are you going to teach a Hatha class today? And he'll say, I'm just not really in the mood for Kundalini Yoga today. But then other times he'll say, okay, I'm coming to Kundalini, or can we do a Kundalini Yoga meditation? It depends what kind of mindset he's in.
I mean, do you think it's an energetic thing, or?
Yeah, because sometimes and again, sometimes people feel that sometimes Kundalini Yoga is too much for certain people and for their nervous systems, because it works so fast. It moves you through your stuff so fast, and not everybody wants to move through their stuff that fast. Not everybody wants to overcome their childhood issues that fast. Not everybody wants to feel their stuff that fast. But then again, Hatha Yoga brings us into that awareness. And a lot of people don't want to sit and meditate, because they'd much rather be distracted by grocery shopping and reading ingredients, because then you don't have to think about the things that are painful, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's the thing about like my insight mindfulness practice. I mean, it is. There's a lot of stuff that you just as soon not. I don't want to say you don't deal with it, because you don't really do anything with it in the practices, but It's really like you have to be with it. And when you're really stressed, that's the last thing you want to do. But it's not. But it's only through going through the fire that you can actually get to the other side. And
That's
if you
it.
stay back, that fire just gets bigger. So you might as well go on through.
And that's exactly it. Many people end up getting sick, or they end up having stomach issues, or all sorts of different things that happen. And it's really the way that their bodies are saying, I need you to respond to what is going on. I am feeling this, and you're avoiding it. We separate ourselves instead of integrating mind, body, soul, spirit, breath, which is what we do in yoga. In life, it's very easy to just say, okay, my body is going to be right here doing this, but my mind is going to be somewhere else. My soul, I don't even know who my soul is. And my breath is stuck up here. And then we end up going, okay, why am I having these issues with my legs? Why am I afraid to move forward?
Right.
Why am I getting headaches? Or but once we feel the pain, we can heal the pain.
Yeah.
And we recognize, oh, this doesn't feel so good, and I don't know if I want to sit through this, but I'm going to command myself to do this practice, feel it, heal it, and then let it lift.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're out of time.
Aww.
I know, but don't worry, we'll have more segments.
Okay.
So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for listening.